time for our daily look at what's trending in China. And that highly anticipated Halloween celebrations in the streets of Shanghai last night turned out to be, well, a bit of a nothing burger. Mostly empty, rain-sodden streets and plenty of police. Minmin's been looking at this for us and really what the mood was like yesterday after what we've been seeing, what authorities there have been doing the last few days when it comes to costumes and the like there, Yeah,
so I should say maybe this is what is not trending on social media right now. That sort of crackdown on the Halloween celebrations over the weekend was trending on the weekend, but then after that it was pretty much scrubbed from social media by the censors. So yesterday was the actual day of Halloween. We were expecting people to come out to celebrate, but all we saw were plenty of police, half a dozen police at street corners, just a few scattered party-goers. Some of them reportedly had registered their costumes with the police. And what happened prior to that was that over the weekend, there were plenty of people coming out on the streets, but police were seen just kind of ushering people away. Okay, I see that you're...
Is that a Huawei phone?
Yes.
Wow.
So this is what we can still see on Chinese social media now. People dressed in the trifold Huawei phones and different types of Chinese products, which I can't tell if it's just pride, over Chinese national pride on display, or if it's a marketing gimmick by some of these companies. But this is what's still trending now. But what you don't see on social media is the police just ushering people away. Businesses were told not to admit people who are dressed in strange clothes and not to hold Halloween celebrations. There were people dressed as Donald Trump, as the Buddha and Jesus, taken away. Also people just in comic book characters. It wasn't clear whether the police was targeting a certain type of costumes, but I guess it's precautionary measures given what happened last year.
Well, what happened last year?
So last year was the first Halloween celebration after COVID, and I guess people took that opportunity to maybe vent their frustration creatively. So there were many people who were dressed up in hazmat suits or, carrying huge cotton buds as props, because we had so many swab tests last year. People dressed in surveillance cameras, for example, and that really just went viral on social media. And maybe the authorities feel that was just not appropriate. So there are just a lot of police out in full force this year.
How does this crackdown, I guess, how do you square that with what President Xi's been calling for, which is artistic democracy and some of these kind of cultural powerhouse, being a cultural powerhouse by 2035?
Yeah, I thought that was very interesting because President Xi was basically calling for officials to really nurture this cultural getting scholars and artists to create works, right? But then you also at the same time have this sort of culture of fear or maybe cautiousness at play. So you got to wonder that top-down approach, directing people to create works of art, is that actually, it just goes against the idea of artistic freedom. And just now there was a picture as well, one of the very rare few pictures that I still see on Chinese social media, someone dressed up depicting how unemployed they are.
Yes.
If you can flash that picture again.
The college grad.
Yeah, the college grads just, showing how, they can't find jobs. That's some of the trends that we're seeing people dressed up as this year.
Yeah, I want to bring in Shirley Renner, Bloomberg opinion columnist. We rarely have seen something like this, right? This sort of crackdown on Halloween in Shanghai. Why do you think it's become such a sensitive topic?
Because China recognizes that the young people has a counterculture of their own, and it may not be comfortable, right? Like, for instance, like we all know that China's young people are heavily underemployed. The youth unemployment rate, the official one is like 18%. The actual one is a lot higher. And they just don't want trouble. Like, they don't want a repeat of what happened, say, right before China exited COVID zero, right? The white paper revolution.
Yeah.
Like, they just don't want anything like that, just in case. They don't want a fake Donald Trump coming out collecting garbage. Stuff like that, It just can happen,
I'm not sure if that has the reality of young people struggling to find jobs, or maybe quite deliberately not wanting to find jobs as much too, has to do with your column as well of just Mart and this
blind box economy.
I don't understand its popularity. Yeah, this blind box that is extremely popular among
Maybe
among the young.
explain to us what's going
what
on
is this
first.
about?
Yeah.
So Pop Mart is basically a toy maker, and this blind box is basically a marketing gimmick. You get a box, a packaging, and then you don't know what kind of figurine is really inside. And then on the box, they actually say you have 1 out of 70%. Your odds of getting, say, a special figurine is 1 out of 70 or 1 out of 120. So if you open it up and then see the special figurine, you just feel like I'm so lucky. And it's selling very, very well in China, and it's doing also very well in Southeast Asia. Like some of the series, the monster series, La Boo Boo, apparently is a fan. Blackpink's Lisa is a fan, and Labubu is selling very well. And it's basically kind of like it's kind of like Where the Wild Things Are. Remember that cartoon book? It's kind of like that. And then Chinese young people, I think it's really a sense of them not wanting to grow up and wanting to become Peter Pans, right? Like I mean, we know, like unofficially, academics have done studies that suggest that China has tens of millions of so-called professional children. They basically graduated from college. Their parents are reasonably well-to-do, and they cannot find good jobs. And the parents say, okay, let's just take a gap year or 2 or 3, right? And these professional children, you actually see a lot of them in China, right? The Pop Mart's retail stores, they are not children. They're actually young adults shopping there.
Yeah.
And I think they just want to be Peter Pans.